Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name's Lefebvre and today we are on day 2 of our 12 days of mini landscape paintings for the holidays. Let's jump in and get started. Okay friends, welcome to day 2 of our 12 days of mini holiday landscape paintings. I have my second painting taped here with some painter's tape from Meeden, which is really great to create borders. I mentioned this in the first video, and I also have lots of tips in day 1's video. If you are painting on a little piece of paper like this, you are going to want to tape it down because otherwise it will warp. If not, use a block of paper and just draw out your tiny paintings, let them dry. So at least they're flat when you're painting, but you are going to want to tape it down so it's nice and flat. I am using Academy Bauhong watercolor paper. It's 100% cotton, cold pressed. I have some Shinhan paints in here. I think this one might be Winsor Newton. This one might be Michael Harding. I have a phthalo blue, permanent yellow light, permanent rose, ultramarine. I think this is New Gamboge, but it's just like a warmer yellow. And then, it's a cadmium red hue, which is a warm red. Just the primary, split primary colors, as well as an indigo. I love using indigo to darken my colors. And I'm using it on my beautiful Craftimo Emma Lefebvre palette, which is still available at Craftimo. Okay, and then for brushes, you are going to want something on the smaller side. I'm using my travel brushes that are going to be coming out soonish. I don't know exactly when, but they have really great points. The smaller the brushes you can find, the better. I also have the size 2 from my signature line. If you have anything smaller, you could grab that as well. But painting tiny, you're going to need tiny brushes. And again, my first video talks a little bit about painting tiny, water control, holding your brush. So if you haven't watched that one, go watch that first, and then we can get started. Okay, so for today's painting, I wanted to do kind of like a Northern Lights one. I did my live launch of my palette recently, and I did this Northern Lights painting that actually turned out really great. And I kind of want to recreate something similar to that. So my paintings are very tiny. They are sizes like a 1 and 3/4 inch by almost 2 3/4 inch. They're tiny. But again, you can make them bigger. You can create name tags. You can create cards out of these designs. They don't have to be tinies paintings. But anyway, I am going to start by taking some clean water. I might grab just like a little bit of a blue just to tint it, just to kind of show you. And I'm just going to create a wet background from about 3/4 of the way and up. So this one's going to focus mostly on the sky, and the snow is going to be here at the bottom. Okay, nice and wet. And then I want to create this kind of turquoise color. So I'm going to grab my phthalo blue, and I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow. I'm using like a size 6 here to create this kind of like neonish green color. I'm a little bit more blue there. Okay. And I'm going to start by creating this kind of wave for the neon lights. It's going to be thicker up here, and then it's going to go smaller down here. Now, wherever you lift off your brush, you get a bloom like that. So keep that in mind. So if you don't want that to happen, you can always lift it up. I'm going to wash off my brush and just kind of wet it back up again. So if you want something smaller, you're going to want to start at the smaller side and then go to the bigger side like that. Okay. So we're doing some wet on wet for this. I'm going to grab a little bit more yellow like this. And I might do another one like that. Do I want to do that? Yes. Okay. And then I'm going to grab some indigo with a little bit of my phthalo blue, I think. And I'm going to paint around this. Again, watch where you're lifting up your brush for those explosions. I'm not going to lift it up right here because then it will bleed right a lot into that green. I'm going to go with the thinner part here, move it away like this. And then over here, and just kind of filling it in. Might get a little bit darker, especially up towards the top of the sky. gonna make it a little thinner there, like that. Like so. Okay, then I kind of want a little bit more of these northern lights to kind of go up. I don't know. I want a little bit more of this flickering look. Now I tried this in my live and it didn't work as well. We're going to try it again. So I'm grabbing a little bit of yellow and just kind of flicking up a little bit. And then I dry my brush on my paper towel so I don't take any more of that darker indigo when it touches the indigo. And you don't have to do this part. I'm just kind of trying to get this like flicking up motion. I also might just take a little bit of water and just kind of add a little stripe of clean water in there. So it pushes the pigment away a little bit. Like that. And then one thing that I did in my live, which totally worked out and was an accident, I wanted to lift up some color. So I took a paper towel and I went like this. I'm going to try it again. I hope it works again. And I lifted up some of the paint and it created a mountain. Okay. It's not, watch, now it's not going to work. Okay. So I lifted like this and it created this mountain shape. Watch, now it's not going to work. So I'm kind of trying to use the point like that. Now what I do is I wait for it to completely dry a little bit. Because it's a little bit more dry towards here, I'm going to take a little bit of my ultramarine and I'm just going to do a slight color of the snow while I'm making sure that the sky is wet. I'm just going to add a little bit of ultramarine and a bit of dry brush. So I'm just kind of skimming it across. I don't have a lot of color on my brush, water or paint. I want it a little bit darker towards the bottom here, just towards the edges. And then I'm going to let it dry just a little bit. Okay, so obviously these mountains look a little weird. This is what I did in my live that kind of worked. I grab a little bit of indigo, not a lot of water, and I kind of go up and I just make a point and then kind of do this dry brush, dragging down. And it skims the paper. And so those lighter highlights look like parts of the mountain. I'm just going to do kind of like a double-decker mountain here. Okay, so that light area now kind of looks like it's part of like a snowy mountain. I'm going to create a little bit more darkness, maybe a little bit more jaggedness to the top of my mountain. Like that. Just a little bit more darker parts. But then it also looks like oh my goodness, the northern lights are kind of reflecting off of this really cool mountain. Okay, like that. Then I'm going to create a tree line as well. So I'm just going to grab my really dark green and a little bit of indigo. And I'm going to just create some trees in the background like so. Just taking the tip of my brush. I'm just doing vertical lines, not even like little horizontal lines. I'm just taking the tip of my brush like this and tapping to create a little tree line. And then I'm just going to make it solid at the bottom there. Okay. Making these tiny little trees. Like that. Okay. Then I want to create one more tree that's more in the foreground. So I'm going to do it here and it's going to be nice and dark. So I'm doing a vertical line up and then I'm just tapping back and forth with the tip of my brush, make it a little bit taller. Just tapping back and forth until I get this kind of tree shape. I am going to put snow on it, so it doesn't have to be super full and dense. We can fill it up with some snow after. But I'm really just tapping the brush. Now, because we have such like a light show in the background going on, you want your trees in the foreground and on this tree line nice and dark. That also affects the color of the snow that's going to be on the trees. If there is a shadow or if it's nighttime, snow doesn't actually look white. It has a blue tint to it. So you're going to want to get out some white opaque paint and mix it with a little bit of blue, which I'm going to do in just a second. Here, I'm just going to extend this tree line over here like that. Okay. Let me be back there a little bit. Okay. So that needs to dry before we add our snow. But what you can also do with this mountain is do that same kind of dry brush effect. And the white paint I'm using is Dr. Peach Martin's Bleed Proof White. If you don't have this, like I said, you can get white, even a white acrylic works, white gouache, whatever you have on hand. And I'm just gonna, I don't have a very wet brush. I'm just gonna kind of skim it over these mountains. So it looks like there's some snow on the mountains, a little bit of dry brush there. See that? And then I'll do it on the trees after it's dry. So let's let this completely dry first. Then I'm going to take my bleed proof white and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of my ultramarine. So it's an opaque ultramarine. So if you're using what's it called? A acrylic paint marker, you're going to want to use a white blue for this. A light blue. Okay, and I'm just going to dab it on the tree here. Like that. You don't want it completely white. And then maybe in the background here, just a little bit on these trees. Really tiny, kind of scribbly bits. Like that. Okay, if you feel like your tree is getting a little lost with all the snow, you can grab your dark color again and just do like a couple little, you know, branches kind of coming out. Like that. You can also skim over the mountain again, with a bit of dry brush. Like that. I'm going to grab a little bit of ultramarine and just create a bit more of a shadow down here behind the tree. Like that. And then to finish it off, I'm going to add a bit of snow splatter. I'm going to grab my bigger white or my bigger brush, some of that white paint, use my finger and create some white snow, or it could be stars. And there we go. There is our Northern Lights mini landscape. Let's take the tape off. Actually, before I put it in a frame, I'm going to add a little bit more ultramarine shadow on some of the snow. Just a little bit, a slightly bit darker, just so there's a little bit of a variety in the snow color of these little blobs. A shadow on the shadow, if you will. It will make it pop out a little bit more. See that? Just to one side, adding a little bit more darker ultramarine. And then if you really wanted to, you could add a bit more of just a white highlight on some of these, just so there's different varieties of shadow on the snowfall. And there we go. And there we go. There is our second mini landscape painting. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on all my other platforms for tons more content. Have a great day, guys. Bye.